All right, we'll go ahead and get started here. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Mindfulness Monday session. We're so happy to be continuing this series that we began this summer. These sessions are a collaboration between the Office of Alumni Engagement and the University Center for Student Wellbeing. As we find ourselves living through this challenging time, meditation and mindfulness practices can be powerful ways to help us better manage current stresses and uncertainties. During this session, mindfulness meditations will be taught and practiced together in hopes of providing us with a greater sense of peace and vitality. This session will cover meditation in everyday life. I'm Audrey Tierney, the Associate Director of Alumni Engagement, and I am so pleased to be joined today by my colleagues and alumni, Dr. TJ Smith and Amber Lazier of the Center for Student Wellbeing. They were more than happy to put together this program to help us all navigate through these challenging times with the present pandemic. Before I introduce them, I have just a few notes in regards to the technical end of the session. Throughout the program, your microphones will be muted, but you are welcome to submit questions through the chat feature found on the toolbar at the bottom of the screen. TJ and Amber will answer questions at the end of the program as time permits. Now, a few words about my colleagues from the Center for Student Wellbeing in case this is your first time joining us. Dr. TJ Smith is a licensed clinical psychologist and has been engaged with meditation for over a decade, most recently leading meditation groups for Duquesne University students. TJ is currently the training director for Duquesne's counseling services. Amber Lazier has a background in exercise physiology and has taught yoga for 13 years and meditation for 11. Amber currently is the assistant director for recreation services and has a profound appreciation for the ecumenical approach to the mission of the university. She also just graduated from Duquesne in May with her master's degree. Now I will turn our session over to Amber and TJ.
Thank you, Audrey. It's so nice to see everybody today. I'm really excited about our presentation today because it's one of my favorite topics to cover. So in the last weeks and months that you've been with us, if you've been with us for those months, we've talked about the anatomy and physiology of meditation, the act of welcoming thoughts and watching our thoughts move, and finding other ways to manage our stress through mindfulness techniques. So for today's presentation, what we'll be covering is all of the small ways that you can incorporate mindfulness into your everyday life activities, because it's not something that should be in one place static, a 3-minute, 30-minute session where you have to go to this separate space and practice, but rather we should be practicing it through our everyday interactions and using it to help us to find calm, especially in times where we're not feeling so calm. And we'll get into that as we continue. But I would like to begin our mindfulness practice today with a quote, "There is no enlightenment outside of daily life." And that's from Thich Nhat Hanh. And it's basically a reminder to us all that we exist in our daily life from moment to moment, even the things that we might consider mundane or routine. Those are the spaces where we can really incorporate a sense of presence and an intention to be more mindful of those things that we oftentimes don't see.
And the first thing we're going to visit talking about everyday mindfulness is this 3-minute breathing space. 3 minutes, sounds like we can do 3 minutes. That's short enough where it's nothing that's going to be too much. That's the thing, because I think a lot of times when people begin meditation, they sort of enthusiastically want to jump in, maybe have a 20-minute sitting, a 30-minute sitting, and that's where it gets a little bit overwhelming at times. It can be a lot. Even if you are able to do a 20, 30, 40-minute sitting, sometimes you just need those small sittings, the 3-minute space, and come back to yourself. So this will be one method that will be used in particular, and then we're going to be looking at it in different situations. This is from mindfulness-based cognitive therapy. So there was the mindfulness-based stress reduction that we've talked about before with Jon Kabat-Zinn. They've adjusted this to apply it particularly to cognitive therapy. So folks might be feeling a little bit anxious or sad. The 3 steps to this are: 1, becoming aware. So when you have about 3 minutes and you want to use this, the first thing you would do is just become aware of what your experience is right now. What would that be? Maybe the thoughts that we're thinking, the feelings that we're feeling, what's going on in our body, what might be going on in the environment around us. The second step would be a gathering. So since our mind might be focusing on thoughts, feelings, body, we want to gather that down and focus on one thing. So of course, as we've done before, this focus will be a focus back onto our breathing. So we'll be focusing on the breath as it goes in, focusing on the breath as it goes out. And then that third thing would be expanding. Once sort of we gather the mind and the focus on the breath, then we can expand to include a sense of our body as a whole. It's this way to ground us. So that way we come from dispersion in thoughts, feelings, and whatnot to really becoming aware of what's going on right here and now, bringing that awareness back to the breath, and then bringing it to something larger like the body as a whole. So yeah, feel free to write those down. I think this is a method we could use in different environments and different settings, just becoming aware of what's going on right now, gathering the focus to your breath, and expanding it to focus on the body as a whole. So what I'm going to do right now, rather than talk about it, I'm just going to walk you through a brief 3-minute breathing space. All right, just become aware of how things are at in this moment by deliberately adopting a dignified posture. If possible, you may want to close your eyes. Bring your awareness to your inner experience, acknowledging it, and ask yourself, what is your experience right now? That's all that step one is, becoming aware of what your experience is right now. What thoughts are going through your mind? As best you can, acknowledge thoughts as mental events, perhaps putting them into words. What feelings are here? Turn toward any sense of discomfort or unpleasant feelings. Acknowledge them. What bodily sensations are here right now? Perhaps quickly scan the body to pick up sensations of tightness or bracing, acknowledging the sensations. Step two, gathering. Redirect your attention to the focus on the physical sensations of breathing itself. Moving close to the sense of the breath in the abdomen. Feeling the sensations of the abdomen wall expand as breath comes in and falling back as breath goes out. You could also just as easily use the lungs or the nose as a way to sort of focus on the breath in this present moment, going in and out. Gathering a focus to the process of breathing itself. Following the breath in and following the breath all the way out. Using breathing to anchor yourself in the present. Step three, expanding. Expand the field of your awareness around the breathing so that it includes a sense of your body as a whole, your posture and facial expression. You become aware of any sensations of discomfort, tension, or resistance. Take your awareness there by breathing into them in the in-breath. And then breathe out from these sensations, softening and opening with the out-breath. best you can, try to bring this experience and this expanded awareness to the next moments of your day within this hour and after this seminar. All right, and that was pretty simple, just a 3-minute breathing space. And when we think about these daily practices, we have to think about them as something that can be planned, but they also can be something that can be an opportunity. So this spray, you could actually use this and try to do it 3 times a day. That's what the mindfulness-based cognitive therapy folks say. It doesn't have to be 3, it could be 1, it could be none per day, it could be 10, but you could plan them out at specific times of the day to just get a sense of, okay, this is what it's like to use the 3-minute breathing space. Nice thing about that is you're practicing it. You're practicing that skill of becoming aware, gathering, and expanding, so that way when you need to use it, it's more easier to use. The nice thing too is you can also practice it before something stressful. So that could be if you have a presentation coming up, something at the job, maybe doing something you don't want to do, a tense interaction. You can practice that beforehand. Now, what we're going to be doing this session is really looking at different opportunities to practice. We're going to focus on 5 ones in particular. There's a tremendous amount of different opportunities. We're just kind of putting your focus on a couple ones in particular, so that way you know what to look for. The key here too is thinking about this mindfulness practice as something that's proactive versus reactive. So we're going to be looking at more the proactive sense, so that you can plan this throughout various times in your day. You might even just sort of pick up on this as a way when you're doing something to go, hey, this is a good time to practice mindfulness and meditation. Really, the proactive way is looking forward in an intentional way to have more moments of mindfulness and peace throughout the day. However, you can also do it reactively, and I think that's great. So let's say you do have a difficult interaction, stress at work, something that happened at home. You can then use this 3-minute breathing space to come back to yourself and gather a sense of calm, more of a sense of peace.
So, TJ, I like that 2 things. Number one, I really like that you have spelled it out that, it doesn't have to be 3 times. It doesn't have to be 3 minutes. We're in such a culture of instruction lists and like first this, then this, then this. And I like that you've really opened it up to say, there's not this exact list of things that you have to do exactly right. It's just a matter of finding those spaces and making it happen. Just like breathing, there's no correct or incorrect way to breathe when we're meditating. Oftentimes, it's just breathe normally. So, but I do have a question. So you talked about like proactive versus reactive. Proactive is, I'm thinking ahead, I'm planning, I'm putting some space around the issue so that I can like consider how I will respond. Mm-hmm. And then reacting is kind of that reflexive motion of like something happens, I react, there's no thought, there's no space between it. Would you say if we made mindfulness a practice, or we practice this 3-minute breathing space with the 3 steps throughout our day, do you think that eventually that would become a reactive response? Like if we practice that enough that maybe like eventually it'll become our instinct to stop and pay attention?
Yes, definitely. Yep. I'm glad you pointed that out too, because like the proactive versus reactive, in one way, that's just to sort of have a title up there. Yeah, in thinking through the practice, and this is like just sustained movements, a little bit each day, a little bit each week, month, years and years. That this would be something that when you do that might be your first instinct, your reactive, which even would be more responsive. So that's, I guess, what you would be looking for in the long run would be turn the reaction into more reactive, more into the responsive, so that way when something does happen, there'll be a sense to take a step back, to take some breaths and gather yourself. And the cool thing is it's you don't realize it. It's unconscious in a way. I'm trying to think, I had something when was it? Something over the weekend that happened that I actually responded rather than reacting. I ended up sort of breathing, having some space. And then I realized after the fact, I'm like, oh, that would have gotten me frustrated before. That would have got me really stressed. So the fun thing is, I think you're not doing it intentionally. I think it starts out as very intentional, like, hey, I had a bad, interaction with someone at work. I'm going to practice this, give myself some space. But that's very right. It's something that when you practice it enough, you might find yourself just taking some breaths, coming back to yourself, and then going back to your day, not even realizing it. And then only later do you realize, that was a moment of growth.
And what's interesting working with you, so I am more physical in my education, so the physiology of things and the anatomy of things, whereas you deal with mental health and like the mental response to things. And so I look at it like exercise. If
Yes.
you constantly practice using a muscle in a certain way, so I'm constantly doing bicep curls, my biceps are going to get stronger, and so from a standpoint of a mental health practitioner, would you say like you practice these things over and over again and eventually it becomes the norm?
Yes, yeah, that would be it. And I would even think about basketball. I like basketball. And I think this whole thing could be like we're practicing this every day. That might be going out and shooting hoops, dribbling, getting that practice in. But then the everyday mindfulness that we're teaching today, that would be the game. It's actually getting out there in the game. And that's why it's so important to sort of have that practice, but then to go out there and play the game, playing the game of life. And I'll give the disclaimer too, no matter how many years you're practicing, and this is what you and I have said before, there are going to be those moments that things just break through. And that's why I always appreciate Amber always points out those areas that, paying attention to those things that we are particularly reactive to. So I think, something that happens that isn't that difficult, you might be able to practice sort of a responsiveness to. But sometimes there's those touch point issues that really get us that, after 10 years of practice, 20 years, that might still get you too. So that's not a sign that you're progressing. It's just a sign that something or somebody triggered you.
My little brother. He's 28 years old now, but that's probably my one space where I really need to practice. I love him, but he just knows how to push my buttons like no one else. And so I can be responsive to so many other aspects of my life, but sometimes we have these interactions and I just go to that but that's probably a sibling rivalry thing.
Yes. Yeah, this is anticipating the holidays, Thanksgiving and
oh yeah.
Yeah. All right. So we'll start with just one here, which would be the walk to work. In doing this, I don't even know how many people are walking to work anymore. So this will be something that I know myself when I'm at work there, I have a nice walk from my car to the actual building itself. So that's what I'm imagining. If you walk to work, that'd be awesome that I actually have a chance this morning to walk. But then a lot of us are at home too. So this could be a walk to anywhere. It could be a walk to get the mail is really a great place. It could be a walk to take out the garbage or just a walk that you're taking to go around the block. So I think this is a place really to find an opportunity to practice. And in particular, this opportunity to practice here is usually a time that we just sacrifice. When we're walking to somewhere, we're coming out of the car, into work, we're already at work, we're thinking about, okay, what do I have to get done? Maybe I'm checking the phone and my email on the way to there. So we just sort of discard it. It's just a moment that, hey, I'm already at work. I might as well not take this moment for myself. So that's what I'd like you to just to try, even starting tomorrow or today on the walk home to the car. Just think about what's on your mind when you walk to work in the morning or when you walk to the car in the afternoon. Is it a to-do list? You wish you weren't at work? In Pittsburgh here, it's the cloudy day, as we say. So it's definitely the clouds that we're accustomed to. So this could be a time when we all wish we were sleeping in a way. But I really think that start of the day is the perfect time to practice, really to check in with how you're doing and what's going on. So I do practice more mindful walking on the way to work and even as I'm going up the stairs. I'm trying to take the stairs to kind of keep my distance from folks rather than going in the elevator. So that's a nice way to get a bit of exercise, but then also I'm not running up the stairs. I'm sort of trying to do it very calmly and meticulously.
I'd like to add that you're on the 6th floor. So for
Yes.
all of you in the audience, that means TJ's walking up and down 6 floors.
Yes. And speaking of the physiology, does a mask, does it make it more difficult to breathe sometimes? Like it does feel like when I'm walking up those stairs and right at the end, it's like that recycled carbon dioxide is kind of, or maybe it's just walking up the 6 floors.
Well, it depends on your mask, really. And this is a good question that a lot of people have asked me, because we require masks in the fitness center when people are running on treadmills. If you have the right kind of mask that's more breathable, then you've got no problem If you have a cloth mask, it's not so much the carbon dioxide, like you're actually getting almost just as much oxygen as you would without the mask. It's just that you have that proximity to the face and to the nose. So you have to work harder to breathe in, and you have to work harder to like exhale. And that is actually using more muscles. So you're working harder, even though you're taking in the same amount of oxygen. So look for athletic masks, or make sure you're wearing your mask correctly too, because I thought I was going to pass out one day as I was walking downtown, and here my mask was on upside down. And so as soon as I flipped it, like it stopped sucking into my face.
That's it. That helps. That helps. And then, sort of when I'm walking up there, and if I'm taking a slow enough pace and the breathing's okay, I just start to sort of pay attention to what's it like to walk, because that's walking up steps is much different from walking to the mailbox, paying attention to the way my feet hit the ground, noticing what part hits first, noticing what's that like on my calf, or how's that feel on my quad, what's that experience like in my core. So really, I'm just sort of putting my attention, rather than thinking about, I got to get to work, I have to get this note done. I'm just being here and now in my body and my breathing too, because I'm noticing my breathing's different. So in that way, rather than sort of being dispersed first thing in the morning, I'm coming back to myself, coming back to my body. It's like it's an adjustment in the 3-minute breathing space, worth a couple minutes that it takes to get up the steps. And then when you come down to the office, you open up that door, rather than the first thing, you turn on the computer. And then when you're waiting for the computer to boot up, take a couple of deep breaths there. It's a way to sort of calm down after that walk, and a way to come back to yourself.
And, it's so important that we remember, it doesn't matter what you're focusing on when you're doing your walking, or any of these other things that we're about to talk about. What we're doing with meditation, just like TJ said at the very beginning, is bringing your focus to one subject. So whether that's how your feet feel, or whether that's how you're breathing, or it's, what's the temperature, what am I hearing? When we are able to take our mind to those spaces of just one subject, and a subject outside of that which stresses us out, such as running late, it gives us more clarity when we return to that subject. Because sometimes when we get caught up in something that stresses us out, we just start thinking in circles, and we are not thinking as clearly. But if we could just give our mind a little vacation, just think when you go on vacation, you oftentimes come back relaxed, unless it was traumatizing. But if you went on a true vacation, you relax. When you come back to work, you feel a little bit more into it. You're thinking more creatively, and you're ready to go back. And it's giving your mind a little mental vacation from that which is stressful. So when we are running late, that's probably one of the most stressful things, at least in my mind. It's so important. There's nothing you can do to change it. You're already late. You cannot go back in time and fix that problem. So if you find yourself running late, this is another time to practice your mindfulness. First thing is just to breathe. Take a few deep breaths, inhaling, exhaling, focusing on the breath. You're not going to gain any time, even if you sprint, and you can sprint if you need to, but even if you sprint, you're not really going to gain that much of a time difference. So just take a moment, focus on the breath, keep your mind focused on the breath, and then start to assess what's going on. Do you notice maybe thoughts coming up? Do you notice certain tensions in the body as when you're in this space of running late? For me, it's like, you always do this. Why couldn't you have taken less time to drink coffee and scroll the internet, and more time getting yourself out the door? Those types of thoughts that we might think towards ourselves. So you might just notice those critical thoughts coming in. Or you might notice, as you stress about being late, you start to raise your shoulders up and up and up and up, or start making fists, or breathing really shallowly because we're panicked about, getting there on time. So just take a moment and objectively look at how you feel, what thoughts are coming into your mind, and then take the next moment to just try to relax the muscles. So I know I am a jaw tightener. So when I realize that I'm in this stress cycle, I try to tell myself, relax the jaw, relax the shoulders, take a deep breath, relax the body. And that can do a lot to help to take the edge off of that stress, because it lowers our heart rate, slows our breathing, and gives us a little bit more calm, because again, there's nothing we can do about it once we're late. Then the next thing to do is just take a moment to focus. So it doesn't matter, like TJ said, you could be focusing on the breath, you could be focusing on your heel strike, your toe strike. If you're walking to that space, just find something to focus on. Give your mind that little vacation away from you stressing out about being late. And eventually you're going to arrive at your destination and take another moment to focus just on the breath, focus just on, how the room feels, what you're hearing, and then you'll be more engaged. So there's a big difference between, let's say I'm running late for a meeting and I sprint there and I rush in and I go into my meeting, find a chair, get all my things out, and my mind is like circling around like, oh, everyone's looking at me, they know I'm late, they're gonna think I'm irresponsible. Versus if I take that second outside of the door to just relax myself, when I enter the meeting, I'm sitting down, I'm getting myself ready, and I'm engaged in the meeting. I'm not wasting 5 minutes at the beginning of the meeting when I entered worrying. I'm just ready to begin.
And I have to admit something. I tend to be late at sometimes. I like to be on time, but I think anyone who likes to be on time then runs late if something all goes on. Would this be applicable for working at home too? Because I'm wondering about, like, there's ourselves in motion to get somewhere, like when I'm in office, but I'm wondering what that's like for, being at home, like how we could apply this, maybe if we're, running to a Zoom meeting or something.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Now, you don't have that like quick walk. Like I'm always visualizing like walking across campus,
Yes.
But when you're at home, it's you're always online, you're always on video. And so you might be rushing to like put on a nicer shirt or, like brush your hair or, like any of those things that you do to be video ready. You could be, instead of like a walk, you might be focusing on the texture of the shirt that you're choosing, or focusing on your breath as you like start your computer, log on to Zoom and do all of those things, like focus on the breath, focus on even, the artwork of the website, or just taking that mental break to focus on something that's not your lateness, just focus on something in the present. Maybe you have, a piece of art in your house, like you have a picture behind your head, like take a second and just like look at that, take a few deep breaths and like see what you notice about that picture before you like enter that space, just so that you're not caught in this cyclical downward spiral of panic thinking. But that's a great question, because we're in that space now where we're all at home. And so running late looks a little bit different. And oftentimes we're not given that, you're at home, like how are you late? But there are so many things that might come up.
Thanks, that helps out.
Absolutely. The other one, and I think that so many people have this fear of public presentation, public speaking. And so this might hit home for some of you who are listening. But, it is a nerve-wracking experience. You're getting in front of a group of people and they're looking at you and you're expected to produce an entertaining time for them, or at least informative. But before you go into the presentation, just remember, everybody's rooting for you, because nobody wants to sit through a bad presentation. So they want you to be engaging, they want you to be good. And so they're giving you the benefit of the doubt before you even come in, because nobody, like, I'm sure you've sat through some rough presentations or meetings. You don't want that for yourself. So just remember before you present that people are rooting for you. But I broke this down between a pre-assessment and a pre-assessment. So the pre-assessment is right now, right here in your space, wherever you are. I want you to just think about, when you're nervous, picture yourself about to speak in front of a group. What are your telltale stress signs? Are you holding stress in your shoulders? Are you clenching your jaw? Do you feel tension in the chest, or your abs are really tight? Are you breathing shallowly and quickly? We have all of these responses. And at some point, I'd like for you to just jot them down. Or if you are about to speak before a group somewhere in your future, jot down how you're feeling, because chances are those are our signature stress responses to events that stress us out. So if you know what those are, then you are so far ahead of the game when it comes down to it, because you can try to counteract those responses. So our pre-assessment is right now versus, or like sometime in the next couple of days, think about those physical stress responses as well as the mental stress responses. What are you saying in your mind to yourself? What are you scared of? What worry keeps popping up? And write all of those down, because you want to have a countermeasure to it. And at the end of the day, we're going to do a body scan meditation where we try to relax our muscles. So maybe you can learn some new techniques for just like relaxing beforehand. But then we go to the pre-assessment. So that is right before you're about to go on stage, right before you're about to go on Zoom, whatever it is. Ask yourself, how am I feeling right now? Does it match up to what my pre-assessment said? Am I close enough? And then try to actively relax. So if I'm a shoulder raiser, just take a deep breath in and exhale, relax the shoulders. If I'm a shallow breather, start to do some mindful breathing. Inhale for 4 counts, exhale for 4 counts, and back and forth, continue breathing. And take 30 seconds to 3 minutes. The breathing practice that TJ ran us through is a really great one to start with, or you could just, 30 seconds, just focus on the breath. Because when we're breathing slowly and evenly, our vocal quality is better. So we're being mindful of our breath, being mindful of the present moment where we are. And when we do that, we're opening up our airways and our voice sounds better. We don't sound nervous. You've probably heard yourself or you've heard a speaker, and you could immediately tell that they were nervous because their voice was shaky, the pitch was higher, airways weren't as open. So open up your airways and just focus on the breath. And then as you're presenting, just momentarily check in with yourself. You've got to pause, you maybe put a graphic up on the screen for everybody to look at, give them a second to take it in, but then give yourself a second to take in how you're feeling, and just check in with yourself, see how you're feeling in the moment. Remind yourself to take a deep breath, and it can make a huge difference in the presentation quality. And then the next one is meeting new people. So, we have these, on Zoom, it's a little different, but in the before times, we would have networking events, we would have social gatherings where we might even shake hands. I was looking for a graphic to put on this slide of like social gathering, meeting, networking, and everything had like big groups of people, and I immediately felt this anxiety because, with social distancing, I can't even watch TV without like, a TV show from 2019 where like teenagers are in a house party. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like look at them, they're sharing drinks. So the handshake is about as risque as I could get for this graphic. But we have these situations where we meet new people, even online. And it's one of those situations where some of us might have some anxiety about it going in, some of us might not care. But regardless of where you fall in that spectrum of, networking event and how you feel about it, you can get a lot of benefit from being a positively engaged person when you network with others or meet new people for the first time. So the first thing to do is visualize a positive engagement with someone, where you just kind of think of yourself meeting another person and what does a positive outcome look like, and how does your most confident self look? How does your conversation look? And just visualize that, kind of feel yourself in that space. And before you enter that space, set an intention for attention. So TJ kind of coined this phrase, I think you did. For setting the intention for attention with mindfulness, where you just take that moment to yourself before you enter that space and remind yourself that you're there to engage with others and to pay attention to what they have to say. Pay attention to what's going on instead of being a little nervous about what you're going to say next, or thinking about who else is in the space, who might see you, like all of those things. And then also perform a self-scan. So this is where, again, just like your pre-assessment or your pre-assessment for public speaking, do a quick scan, like, where am I feeling tension right now? Do I feel tension right now? What am I nervous of? Am I holding my shoulders tightly? And give yourself that information so that you can use it for the future, so that you can help yourself for the next few situations to be a little bit more relaxed and engaging and present. And the final one is just to remain present. So, this isn't so much of taking a moment to like go away and breathe for 30 seconds, but more be present in the moment. So we talk about walking meditation, we talk about breathing meditation, focusing on the footfall and everything like that. Now we're changing our focal point to that person that we might be engaging with, to see what they're actually saying, what's their body language saying, and have that curiosity to engage with them.
I'm glad you said try not to think ahead much about what you're going to say. I'm an introvert myself, as well as someone who can be late. And I know sort of that can be daunting, meeting new people, but it's sort of that more reactive mind is the mind of planning ahead. What am I going to say? That could be fueled by anxiety. So it's that dispersion in my feelings and thoughts that are more anxiety-based and plan-based versus what you're telling us to do here, which would be sort of that gathering, coming back to ourselves, remaining in the present. And in a way, then you're losing yourself in the moment. You got to lose yourself, you got to let go. And then that way you can come back to yourself, because I think that we talk the easiest when we're just letting ourselves go and being more natural.
No, it's so true. And I think that, if you think about engagements that you've had in the past with people you've never met before, the people that you remember most are the ones who are most interested in what you have to say. So I'm a big fan of Errol Morris. He is a director, he makes documentaries, highly recommend him. But somebody asked him, he gets people to say things like, have you ever watched a news special or Dateline or, one of those things where they interview random people? Mm-hmm. And you're like, how are they even saying this on the TV? Like, they're in front of national people and they're saying these things, Have you ever seen that?
I've not, but I know what you're saying. Like, when I see also these interviews and people be really just sort of laying it all out there, surprisingly.
Yeah, like, and so somebody asked Errol, because Errol Morris is especially good at that. Like, he'll get somebody to admit that they ate dog food for 3 weeks straight, or something like that. And somebody asked him, like, how do you get people to say that, knowing that they're on national television and they're saying something kind of embarrassing about themselves? And he's like, the power is in being present and being curious and interested in who you're speaking with. So by taking yourself out of the equation and really just investing your attention and focal point on that person, you are allowing them to be as open as they want to be, because you're giving them that space and you're giving them that. And that always stuck with me, because it's almost like you're interviewing people when you're meeting them for the new time, like, or for the first time. You're meeting a new person and you're asking them questions about themselves and things like that. But if we're caught up in our own nervousness or anxiety and not being mindful of the present moment, then we might miss some of those neat opportunities. Not that like every meeting of new people is to get them to admit that they eat dog food, but it's just a concept of getting people to really seeing who people are rather than like their most nervous selves.
Definitely. In driving in traffic. Duquesne's in the city, so you definitely encounter traffic. And when the city was a little bit more congested, years ago, that was was a heck of a drive. So I find myself needing to practice this, 'cause I think driving can be stressful. I think it can be frustrating. It can be anger provoking. I think when we're in the car too, it can provoke that fight or flight mode where we're kind of scared that something happens and get stressed, or we're, angry beeping the horn. So the thing that I always try to do is just remember to come back to the breath. So especially I'm sitting in traffic, I'm thinking of sort of moving around versus sitting in traffic and people trying to get in and out of lanes. I think it is the opportunity to come back to oneself. The adjustment is I wouldn't close my eyes. I would definitely keep your eyes open when you're driving and you're in traffic, but just sort of come back to that breath, the breath going in, the breath going out. I think there's that fallacy too. The more we concentrate on getting home, the more we'll get home quicker, the more we're frustrated at traffic, or the more we're sort of intending to get home, the quicker it goes. But it's the same thing Amber pointed out with being late. At that point, if you're late, you're late. If you're in traffic, you're in traffic. So it's really focusing on what is going on here and now and cultivating an attitude of acceptance. I am in traffic. This is the way it is. But what I can do is focus on my breath. What I can do is actually focus on the blinkers in front of me. I always like blinker meditation, where when the lights are against one of the left-hand turning signal and a right-hand turning signal. When you see those lights blinking, especially if it's raining a bit too, that's this nice way of a little beat. So sort of focusing on that experience of just watching the rhythmic beat of the blinkers too, I think helps to have a calming and a soothing notion. So what you want to really do is come back to the moment, what you're seeing, what you're experiencing in your body. And in that way, you come home a little bit less stressed. And I think that helps. I really think that drive from work to home, if, when we were driving from home to work, or if you're still doing that, or when you're going to do that, that is really a transition time. And I think that time from work to home, that transition period, helps us arrive safe, helps us rise a little bit more happy. And then I think we can give ourselves to others and family possibly a bit more.
Did you ever play the game 24? Okay,
No.
so 24 is a numbers game with 4 numbers. You get 4 numbers. It can't be like all ones or all twos, but basically, and no zeros. But basically, so you get 4 numbers, 4 random numbers, and using addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, you can get to the number 4, the number 24. And so it's a fun game that you can play with license plates. Like I do that sometimes. Like instead of being angry about traffic, I'll find a license plate and just like really focus on it to get to 24.
Yes.
I've
never done that.
I'll send Audrey the rules of the game to share with all of you if you want to like use that if you find yourself angry in traffic a lot. But I like this traffic as a chance for mindfulness that you mentioned, because we find ourselves in those spaces all the time, and everyone has the same goal to get home, and yet we still find ourselves building up with anxiety and everything like that. So finding those places to really create a sense of relaxation or sense of presence is so crucial, and I had another thought that I wanted to add, and I can't remember what it was, but I'm sure if it comes up, I'll say it. But it's 24 is my actual mindfulness activity whenever I'm driving, is I'll take a look, because you're stuck behind the same car for so long. So I'll just take their license plate and place some 24 with it. And
I'm gonna try that now. Yeah,
yeah,
because
I'll send the rules.
It's that stress. I always think of stress like a little flame or something. And the more you think about it, you just put more logs onto that flame, and it keeps growing and festering and festering. So yeah, the best way to do that is to come back to yourself and to come back to a focus elsewhere. And then that flame sort of dies down. I think 24 would be a way to occupy the mind and then have some fun with it.
And I remember what I was about to say too is, so I'm a numbers person. I like studies. I like looking at statistics. And I used to live in the east of Pittsburgh. The town was called Verona. And before I understood that 28 existed, I would take the Parkway to work every day, and I would have to go inbound Squirrel Hill Tunnel traffic and outbound Squirrel Hill Tunnel traffic. And it was wild. It was awful. And so at first I started studying it of like which lane is better, like which lanes move the fastest, so that I could like figure out when to be in which lane based upon like the exits and the on ramps and everything like that. But then I realized I started looking, because I look at license plate numbers for the game of 24. I started like memorizing like cars and like the first 3 letters of their license plate. And then once I got out of the Squirrel Hill Tunnel to go downtown, that's when things open up and everyone's driving at a normal speed. And I would look for those cars. So I'd be first stuck in traffic and I'd see those aggressive cars trying to like weave their way through. And, you know, I would just pick a lane and just kind of watch like a random number of cars. And I did this for like 3 years. So what I found was, for the most part, I'm sure if you're a crazy stunt driver person who makes dangerous decisions, well, you might not be around anymore, but you might not be driving anymore. But for some of those cars, they might have saved themselves minutes. But for the most part, when I got out of the Squirrel Hill tunnels, even if I just chose a lane and stuck with it, I would see those cars somewhere within my visual spectrum that I could see them, which means that they were only 12 seconds. They may have gained 12 seconds of time. And so when we start thinking strategically about like road positions, you know, we're not really gaining that much time, so we might as well use that time in traffic to be mindful.
Yes.
I thought I'd add that little like informal study that I did on my commute.
I appreciate. I like that. I'm glad of that study too, by the way. That's what I was hoping for with folks who speed ahead. But that's cool.
Yeah, it's fluid dynamics. So there's really not a way for any molecule to get really far ahead. Like if you look at the fluid dynamics of airflow or water flow in a river, you never see a molecule of water start in the back and end up at the front, like ahead of everybody else. It's always minuscule changes. So why fight it? Just pick a lane, hang out, and really focus on your mindfulness techniques. So we talked throughout these different examples of times where we could use mindfulness in everyday life. And throughout most of it, we discussed the idea of, you know, looking for stress in your bodies, looking for changes in how you breathe. And one of the best ways to do that is to first understand where you hold stress. So if you were to like tap on your shoulders right now, do you feel muscle tension? Or if you were to take your thumbs and press upwards at the back of your head, do you feel muscle tension? Or pinching the space between your thumb and your index finger, do you feel tension there? If you feel tension, that might be one of your tension points where you hold stress in your body. I put up this Halloween skeleton with some arrows pointing to some areas that we sometimes feel stress. So you could use those arrows as a guide, but just like press under your neck, in your shoulder, in your abs, in your hips. Notice your hands. See if you feel any muscle tension before we start this exercise, because it's one thing to pay attention to it, tighten it up and relax it. It's a completely other thing if you touch it and you realize like, oh, this kind of feels stressful or tense. So think about those things. And if you have any questions physically about manifestations of stress in your muscles, you can always email me and I will give you some like stretches and things that you can do outside of that. But right now, what I want us to do is do a mental relaxation body scan. So find a space where you're comfortable seated, evenly on the left side, right side, front and back of the body. And just close your eyes and take a few deep breaths. Inhaling and exhaling all the way in, all the way out. And set your intention to pay attention to the body as you do these next couple exercises. Let any of your to-do list, any of your past memories outside of your space for right now. And as you inhale, I want you to bring attention to your forehead, the top of your head, and your jaw. And as you exhale, I want you to relax them. Take note, do you feel any tension there? And on your next inhale, I want you to raise your forehead, clench your jaw, and as you exhale, relax. Do you feel any extra release that happens when you do that? Do you hold tension there? Moving down into your shoulders. I want you to inhale, lift your shoulders. Exhale, press them down. All the way, actually working to press them down. Now inhale, lift your shoulders. And exhale, relax into place. And take a few deep breaths, thinking about your neck and your shoulders. Are you holding tension there? Do they feel tense? Then bring your awareness down your arms into your hands. And as you inhale, make a tight fist, flex your arms. And as you exhale, let them be heavy. Relax. Inhale, notice your hands and arms. And exhale, allow them to relax, taking note if you're holding tension there. Moving into your torso, your chest, your upper back, your abs, your lower back. As you inhale, I want you to flex all of those muscles as if you're preparing for somebody to punch you in the center of your body. And as you exhale, relax all of those muscles. Take several breaths here. You might find that you're relaxing a muscle, and on the next inhale, it starts to tighten up again. And if that's the case, just take several extra exhales to try to keep relaxing. But take note, this might be where you're holding stress in the body. And now as you inhale, bring attention to your whole torso sitting above your hips. And as you exhale, allow your torso to be heavy, relaxed, and still. Did you notice any muscles that needed to be relaxed? Tension that sneaks up, just gently relax it. And with your next breath, I want you to bring your attention to your legs, your hips, your calves, and your feet. They hold you up through life. They're the biggest muscles in your body. So as you inhale, flex all of those muscles. Flex your feet, flex your glutes, your quads. You might feel yourself raise up on the seat a little bit. And as you exhale, let those muscles relax. They're the biggest muscles in your body. So it takes a long time to get them to relax. So take a few deep breaths here, allowing those muscles to relax, get heavy. Allow the seat and the floor to hold them up. And then bring your attention to your full body again, inhaling. Attention to the body, exhale, relax the body as a whole. Take note if there's anywhere that's holding more tension or that you need to relax again. Those might be the spaces where you hold tension when you feel stressed. Take note of that. And again, we inhale, bring awareness to the body as a whole, from our top of our head to our feet. And exhale, relax everything, getting as heavy as you can. Heavier still. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. And that took about 5 minutes. And you don't have to go as long as I did, but basically we started at the top of the head and we moved our way all the way down the body, and we flexed the muscle and then we relaxed the muscle. And if you noticed anywhere that you felt stress or tension, you know that that might be a place where you hold stress in your body. And so before you enter any of these 5 situations that TJ and I mentioned, or other situations that cause stress, check yourself first. Try to relax those muscles mentally before you enter, and that'll take some of the edge off of the stress.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming. I'm just going to leave this poem up here too, because I know we're running down the time. So feel free, if folks want to read it, they can read it. But then also too, we do have a couple seconds here for any questions.
So for these questions, if anyone has a specific question, they can ask it. Or if anyone would like to share another situation in which they might use mindfulness to make themselves more present, please feel free to share those things right now.
I want to thank Patricia here too. She said, thanks for the amazing presentation. It builds on what she's learned her entire life and career and gives a fresh and very practical approach. That's great. So this is stuff that she's encountered and used, and it puts it in a new frame.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks so much, Amber and TJ. I'll just share a little tidbit of how you guys have helped me through all of this. I've realized that when I get stressed out, that I tend to kind of shut out everything else that's happening in my life. So I've taken note after these sessions of myself doing that. And it's really helped me to just take a deep breath and recognize that. And I think I've been improving on it over time. So I don't know if anybody else has a situation where they've run into that as well or something similar.
Thanks for sharing, Audrey. Yeah, it's so true. Like we get caught up in some things and we forget about everything else.
I'm glad it's been helpful too. And that's why I think, mindfulness is just that, about coming back to yourself, but also like expressing curiosity like you were doing to knowing what you work. I know I shut stuff out too when I get stressed. It's learning how we work.
And I think for next week, next month for our mindfulness session, we're going to be talking about gratitude because Thanksgiving. Yes. So we have a special exercise that we'll be doing to illustrate just that. What do we shut out and what we allow in when we're stressed out, and how we can express more gratitude and notice the things that truly make us happy and feel engaged.
It will be entitled Gratitude and Gravy. So,
I love it.
Well, thanks, Amber and TJ, for a wonderful session today. I'm really looking forward to that gravy.
Fantastic. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you all again for attending today's Mindfulness Monday. And be sure to mark your calendar for the November 16th for our gratitude and gravy. and December 14th will also be a special one for the holidays. So please make sure to mark those dates down and join us as we continue these sessions throughout the fall. And links to register for all of our upcoming virtual events will be sent to everyone in a follow-up email. And if you have any questions for TJ or Amber that you didn't ask today, if there's anything specific you'd like to cover in the future, we will include their email addresses in the email as well. Anything else you guys would like to add before we sign off? All right.
I think we covered it all. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks again and have a great day, everyone. Stay safe. And as always, go Dukes.
See ya.
See ya.